Welcome to our video series, Data Act Unlocked. In this series, we provide a concise overview of the most important provisions of the EU Data Act. In this episode, we will take a look at data protection aspects that companies must observe when sharing data. This is important for enabling the adaptation to the EU Data Act without risking data protection violations. The EU Data Act applies to both personal and non-personal data. European data protection law always requires justification when personal data is shared. The Data Act, on the other hand, aims to increase the distribution of data. The different objectives can quickly lead to conflicts between the Data Act and European data protection law. It is now important to note that in the event of a conflict between the Data Act and data protection law, the GDPR shall prevail. Therefore, anyone who is required to comply with a sharing request under the Data Act must determine whether personal data is also affected. If this is the case, a legal basis for the sharing of personal data in accordance with the GDPR is required. The Data Act does not help in this regard, but clarifies that the required legal basis cannot be derived from the Data Act. Therefore, the general rules of the GDPR remain applicable, according to which the sharing of personal data requires a legal basis. A distinction can be made between two cases. If a user requests only their personal data, it can be shared without any problems. This also applies if the user requests to share their data with a third party. However, if the user is not the data subject, or if the request includes personal data of third parties, difficulties arise. It must then be examined whether there is a legal basis under the GDPR that permits the sharing. This may be a legitimate interest, for example. To wrap up, here are the key takeaways from this episode of our new series, Data Act Unlocked. Data sharing may include personal data. In the event of a conflict between the EU Data Act and the GDPR shall prevail. Under the EU Data Act, personal data may only be shared on a legal basis under the GDPR. We're glad to have you following our series Data Act Unlocked. For more insights, check out #CMS Data Law or visit our website.